that's the first step, right? Why would you ever need to? So the point here is going to be, the better you understand your client's business, the stronger the network, the stronger the relationship with your client, the greater the trust. Okay, we are in a sticky profession. Like, the lawyer and a client relationship is a sticky one. Once a client begins to trust his or her lawyer, they would not want to shift. Okay, now I know that there is, for lawyers, a lot of sometimes anxiety, sometimes the urgency that, if I don't get money from a client, then what is the value of all the exercise that I am doing, of all the time spent in talking to the client. Now, the point here is that this one exercise is going to count for a lifetime. Okay, and for all those of you who have their own clients, or who've seen lawyers who have a lot of their own clients, you will know that one client over a lifetime will give you a lot of matters, a lot of referrals, a lot of word of mouth. So successfully getting one client and serving him well is going to be completely worth it. Now, the point is that you don't have certainty at this stage when we're talking about decoding the business of the client. You do not have any certainty, no guarantees that you will get the client or not, whether you will get a mandate, whether you will get paid or not. Okay, it doesn't matter, but the quality of the effort at this stage stays the same, as though that client is worth probably half your practice. Okay, half your practice. Now, if you have a small practice, you can say, put a number to it. Okay, maybe this client, is worth 2 crores to me. Okay, if you imagine that, maybe he's going to give you a 5,000 rupees ka matter. But if you just imagine that, how would I go about understanding and interacting with the client, understanding his or her needs or business, if this client was worth 2 crores or gave me matters worth 2 crores to me? Okay, now that is the mindset you need to have. Okay, and now if you have that mindset, then you would go about understanding the client's business in a certain way. Why? Because you want to build trust with the very first step. Now, I'm going to dive into the topic and share about how to go about decoding the business of a potential client. Okay, why will you do this? Now, suppose you're doing one is building trust. Second is that if you want to identify how you can help the client. Okay, we expect the client to give us specific work, but a lot of times a new client is not able to identify what they need from a lawyer. Okay, so you will have to walk them through and enable them to identify and walk them through. You have to walk through their business and then identify and suggest, maybe you need this, maybe this is what will help you, and then go about the whole quote and the advance and all of that. Okay, but usually we've seen clients just directly reach out to lawyers and say, I need your help for all the legal work, and lawyers jump in with a quotation and a retainer fee, and without much of a requirement analysis or scoping, and that becomes a problem. Okay, so now this process of understanding the business of a client has to be a highly personalized one. There has to be one-on-one interaction. So it could be over a Zoom meeting, it could be over a phone call. Zoom meetings are usually great because you can, like I'm showing you a PPT, so you can show some homework, which is difficult to show on phone because you're only having your voice, but not like a presentation or a document to share. Okay, so what are the questions you will ask now? So I'm going to walk you through some of the questions and then how you can use it later on to think of services that you could provide. Okay, so industry or business basics. Okay, so this is something that a lot of us don't ask. Like, so what is the business size and age? Okay, now business size could be in terms of number of people. It could be in terms of revenues. Okay, number of customers, number of clients. Then it could be on what are the revenue trends? Are they seasonal? Okay, like, do you have a particular season when revenues are high? Like in some training businesses where in-person physical classroom training is there for adults, okay, not children, you'd see that registration shoot up in the months of May to June or November, December, because there are school vacations at that time. So parents who want to take up an adult training program can do that because their kids are on holiday and they are a little free. Okay, now that's an example. Then so you want to understand whether there is seasonality in revenues or not. Now you might ask me that why is this relevant? we'll get to that. Okay, first just continue to understand this. Understand which industry sector are they in. Are they in, for example, telecom? If they are in telecom, then what are they actually running? Are they providing cellular services? Okay, or are they providing some technology which a cellular service operator uses? Because now that will enable you to identify that is there a TRAI license angle, TRAI meaning Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Is there a license angle from there? Okay, or am I actually, does the ISP, for example, have a deal with, have a contract with TRAI, and am I actually providing a software to the ISP? In which case, I am not governed by any term in the terms or in the license with TRAI, but I might do things which will make my client, which is the cellular service operator, compromise or breach a term of the license. So I must understand these interrelations. Okay, so I need to understand whether the client is a regulated entity or not. So if it's purely a company or a proprietorship, many times we don't ask that. What is the structure of your business? Is it an LLP? Is it a company? Okay, is it unincorporated? If it's unincorporated, there is a whole lot of new questions that you can ask, like how are you bearing the expenses? Do you have personal funds? How do you segregate your personal funds from the company's expenses? Have you given loans to the business? So a lot of these questions can be asked. Okay, so after you identify how the business is structured, which industry sector it is in, is there a regulatory framework? Now you can do some background research and be prepared with it. And sometimes if it's in a hyper technical space, you can still ask that, is there a connection with the licensing system of the regulator? Suppose you have a client which is giving you a service comparing different insurance policies. You will ask them that, okay, so you're not providing any insurance, but is there any IRDA angle getting attracted? Okay, you will ask them, what is the USP of your business? What is the unique selling proposition? Are you selling to, and then you will also ask that, are your customers businesses? Are your customers individuals? Is there any other model? Okay, some models are B2B2C, or they are business to institution. So you will ask that, what is the business model here? Okay, business to business is, you understand, right? Like one company serving another. Business to individual is a person directly taking up the product. Like if an individual enrolls into our course, that's B2C. If there's a corporate plan, if a company takes courses specifically for its employees, then that would become a B2B model. If a university is giving a certificate and auditing the programs, and we are collaborating with them, it's a B2I, B2B2C, or a B2I2C. Okay, so that's a question you want to ask to understand that how many relationships will be there. Okay, then how do you earn revenues? Is it subscription based or lump sum? So do you have like a one-time payment? Are there monthly payments? Are there periodic payments? Are there financing options for your customers? Are there loans or EMIs? Is there an issue of refunds that arises? Okay, this is a lot of this happens in tech businesses. Okay, e-commerce, tech, startups, you will find this everywhere. Okay, like you can look at different e-commerce companies and their refund policies. There's a lot of work that lawyers do here to draft these. Then you can look at loans or EMI plans. Like do you provide specific financing options? Sometimes some of the companies tie up with a financial institution to provide finance to the customers who purchase their products. Okay, so if I'm selling a product worth 30,000 and a customer wants a loan for that, I might tie up with a financing institution to provide the loan to the customer. Okay, now in that case, I will have a tripartite, sort of setup. Okay, so I will have one agreement with the NBFC, and there will be an interrelationship with what terms are given to the customer. So it will help me visualize what the needs of the business will be. Now, in each of these cases, you will only ask these questions, understand, and then you can say, okay, do you have a policy for this? Do you have an option for this? Do you have a tie-up with a funding agency to finance your customers? Then in some cases, there is an input, right? Like sometimes you will directly, even in a service business, if you're providing a service to a customer, you will still have an input in the sense that, some consultants will create the service for you or deliver services to you, which are then rendered to your customers. So they'll be engaged by you to render services to your customers. Or sometimes you will have some products coming, which you will resell. Okay, so you want to understand this, that how is the vendor and supply chain system working? What are the costs and terms around it? Are your vendors giving to you any products on credit. Okay, sometimes what happens is that the money from the customers comes later, but you have to pay your vendors before. In that case, there's a cash flow issue, right? So you want to change the terms and you want to have appropriate payment terms. Sometimes you will have that the customer defaulted, but the vendor got paid. Okay, so money management issues, recovery issues, both of these can arise from here. There can be issues of not having any clarity on terms and conditions. So there can be disputes on deliveries or quality from the vendors. Like it might so happen that you're giving a refund policy to your customers, but your vendor is not giving any corrective measure, which means that some of the products of the vendor which turn out to be bad, it solely ends up being your risk. Okay, so these things you might want to align that, if a customer has a complaint or for any reason replaces the product, I want to align it and I want to have the vendor replace it. Okay, these things are some examples that you can ask. Then the distribution and sales, is it online or is it offline? Okay, do you have affiliates doing this? Do you have people on the feet on the street, people individually doing this, or is it all tracked online? Okay, are there franchisees to do this? Many industries have a franchisee model, right from like fast food industry, apparel, hotels, restaurants. Okay, so then do you have bulk deal offers for customers? What are the payment models for commissions? Is there a possibility of fraud by the seller? Okay, how do you detect that? Is there somebody, how do you prevent a franchisee, for example, from stealing your secrets and working from competitors? Is your model foolproof? Are there any other challenges you face in the distribution and sales process? Walk me through it. Okay, I'm doing these like I'm having like a mock conversation with you to explain how this works. Investment and finance is one of the most interesting areas to ask questions on. So are you bootstrapped? Did you take investment? Did any of your friends and family give you some initial investment? Did you put in your own money as a loan? Okay, is it accounted for? Do you need any documentation done for that? So what was the size of the previous round of funding if you are funded? When do you want to raise the next round? Do you want to try out? Are you planning to take loans? How soon do you want to do this? Okay, how are you preparing for it? Okay, what is your scaling up strategy? Are you planning to enter into a new geography or release a new product? Are you going to create a new pricing model, new distribution model? Are you going to target a new customer segment? Okay, are you doing any of that currently? What is the plan to increase your revenues? How will your valuation increase for the next round based on your expansion plans? Okay, then what does your team look like? Okay, so how many co-founders are there? Who are the key employees? What are the relationships between them? Is there legal documentation? Are there ESOPs given to people? Is that well documented? There are a lot of random ESOP promises and letters given to people, so you want to keep that in check. Okay, do you want to create a rationalized ESOP plan? Who are the do you have consultants on your team? Do you have advisors? Do you need help in structuring relationships there? How do you measure the contribution of an advisor? These are some of the examples, okay, of the questions that you will ask on this. What are the challenges you face? Is payment recovery a challenge? Okay, is incentivization of talent a challenge? Because if you're a startup, you might have trouble hiring the best people at market salary, so you might have to compensate for that by giving them ESOPs. Is it retention of talent? Do you find key employees leaving? Or is it that you find key employees leaving for competitors? Okay, is selling to, let's say, institutions or the government a challenge? Is managing cash flow a challenge? Is raising finance through alternative mechanisms a challenge? What is alternative mechanisms? So see, you never know what one is the regular raising finance through an investor, okay, but there could be a bank loan, there could be a specific scheme that one could avail of from the government for SME finance. There could be a lot of other ways through which you can raise finance. So one has to identify that. Some startups may find themselves to be eligible for SME listing on a public platform. Okay, so a lot of these things are there. Maybe sometimes you might advise that let's do a crowdfunding for your new product or service. Okay, so crowdfunding will allow you to generate finance by having early subscribers, product-based crowdfunding. So they purchase the product in advance and you promise to ship that. Is reduction of disputes with vendors or customers one of the key areas you're looking at working on? is getting advisors on board a problem? Okay, or is your business model such that there's a lot of regulatory intervention and you need to stay like a little clear of a regulator's radar? Like a company such as Uber or Ola would have faced that a lot. Okay, a lot of startups in the regulatory space keep facing that. Okay, even in education sector this happens. Now these are some examples. Now why to use this approach? So this is better than give us work conversation, because these conversations usually don't work, and you will find yourself repetitively doing this. And if how many of you have tried this? I'm sure a lot of you have tried this. Either give us work conversation, or client said give us quote, you gave a quote and they said no, or they never got back to you. These are the three things that happen. Okay, now SME listing, Saroj, is a listing of small and medium enterprises on the SEBI's SME listing. On the stock exchanges, there's a SME exchange. Okay, it's a separate exchange run by the stock exchanges like BSE and NSE, where a startup can list, but the trading happens in a slightly different way from a regular BSE listed company. Okay. Now, these are better than give us work conversations. Even if you don't get the client, what happens is that the work you put in is very useful in getting the next client, because you end up learning a lot more about an industry. The other person wants to engage with you. Okay. And you're not over promising results here. You're not undervaluing your services. You're not saying that I'll do everything in this much amount, because if you do this as the immediate step, the problem is that there is a chance of dissatisfaction and loss of self-worth. When lawyers overpromise, okay, this happens because they end up overworking, no free time, and they're working for cheap. They feel that pain. Okay, so instead of that, why don't we identify and get to bullseye about what the potential client may need? Also, it is easier to ask questions. Now, the thing is that you can't be asking very stupid questions. You can ask open-ended questions, something that gets the other person to talk about his or her business. But it's easier to ask that rather than shooting in the dark. What is shooting in the dark? Shooting in the dark means I'll do these 10 agreements for free, or shooting in the dark is for this much amount, or shooting in the dark also means that I can do all types of agreements and compliances. Okay, we don't know what he needs. Okay, and then they will just try to cap their amount. That's how a client thinks. I want to cap my amount that I'll pay to a lawyer. So you don't want to be a cost center. Okay, that's like being a cost center. Basically, for the client, you're just a kharcha ka rasta. So what you want to, when you are actually asking them all these questions, then they identify that if I get this done, my vendor disputes will reduce, I'll save time, or I'll save money, or my customer policy will improve, I will increase my sales. That's how a lawyer has to appear. Okay. Then you obtain more information about the person, which increases chances of successful client acquisition. Right, so you would come to know about the person's business, everything. Okay, now if you suggest something, it's going to be very pointed, and obviously you need to have now a lot of knowledge and understanding of different legal needs connected to these business problems. Okay, right from contracts to MSME compliance or MSME registration to like trademark registrations, to how to draft the arbitration clauses properly, how to select appropriate arbitral institution if you want, then how to fill a government tender form. All that you will need. Okay, and if something goes wrong, how to challenge it. That knowledge you need so that you can ask these questions and walk confidently. Otherwise you will just be faffing, and in fact you will not be able to even do that because you will be so underconfident. Okay, now this leads to trust building. How? Because when you are asking a question and then giving a pinpointed suggestion or input, then the client is like, I need this. Okay, and I can trust you because you are doing an exercise before you suggest something to me. Okay, and connection and the interest that you show basically when you ask questions and the relevancy of the questions to the client's business builds that trust. Okay, now this also gives you some freedom from the burden to appear knowledgeable. Most of the lawyers struggle to think about what should I share with my client? How am I going to appear smart? Right? All that keeps happening. Now, what new insight, what new case law? So of course you can share some new examples every time you successfully help, every time you successfully resolve a client's pain point. You can share those examples without naming the client, that I helped a startup reduce payment disputes by 20%, if somebody asks you. But that's much easier than saying, that I got this award in my favor, therefore I'm a good lawyer and I can do your litigation work. Okay, so you want to connect the solution you propose to the result you got for somebody else. Okay, and even if you can't do that, at least you can ask this client the right questions, or this potential client the right questions. Now there's a natural connection with the client or with the incoming inquiry, and you don't have a need to impress because you're asking questions. You will get the time to do your homework after you ask questions. If you identify that, I don't know about this area, let me go back and do my homework. So you're not in any hurry that I need to close the client right now or close the deal right now. That won't happen. Then you are providing high value through this, and this is very different from like networking or marketing, which is cheap. And this is what, as lawyers, we are scared of, right? We don't want to solicit. We want to have a conversation. The request for legal work has to come from the client. Okay, we don't have to keep suggesting. Okay, so this is not the cheap networking or marketing or the embarrassing one. It doesn't make our profession any less noble, because we are doing very calculated, thoughtful conversations. Okay, rather than how ads can get, right? They are impersonalized, random, intrusive. This is not intrusive. Okay, everything is going to be permission based. Now a short discussion on how to implement. Okay, so where do you ask these questions? We are in lockdown, and how do you meet the client? I would think that this actually makes a lot of things easier. Why? Because you can reach out to a client in any city, any country, technically. And country is important because while law is territorial, there are clients all over India all over the world looking to enter India. If you're an Indian lawyer looking to sell products to Indian customers, so, or set up some operation in India, or some tax advice, a lot of things like that happen. Okay, so sometimes if they are collecting payments, there might be a requirement to store some data in India. So now that means that they will need Indian lawyers' inputs. Now, how do you do this? If you had to meet them, it becomes very, very tiring. You cannot have more than maybe 3-4 meetings in a day. And with court work and other client delivery work, that time gets squeezed. But with an online discovery call, we call it a discovery call. I think you can look at Google the keyword. It's prevalent in the coaching industry. But when you do a discovery call, what happens is that you can identify the client's needs. So you ask those questions, make a note of the needs, okay, based on these questions. And you can invite 1 or 2 key stakeholders along with the client. So if it's a co-founder, you can invite 2-3 other co-founders and say that, okay, you can tell that person that invite your other co-founders, or the person who looks at you with this on these aspects, who will be available daily to look at this. Okay. So now if you can do these calls over Zoom, you can do a lot more meetings much more easily and manage your existing work. And you can tap into a wider client base, wider potential client base. Then what is the follow-up process? Right now you've done your first discovery call, then again the person, there is a risk that they may say, what is the retainer amount? How much will you charge? Let's cap your fees. Okay, and you don't want to do that right now, correct? So how do you go about things? So there are a few tools we suggest, and we explain these a lot more in detail in a 6-hour workshop on beat COVID and recession, how to get 2 new clients per month and earn an additional 50,000 per month of income. But what I'm speaking about here is some overview of the process. Now, this legal health checkup, for example, is an excellent way to tell your clients. So when and why will they need a legal health checkup? Okay, if any business is looking to expand, whether by loans, by bank loan, or through equity funding, or through even NBFC finance or other instruments, so they would want to know where they stand, because before the finance there will be a diligence undertaken, and most businesses do not have the time to focus on all the legal things, and business happens in the ordinary course. So when a lawyer goes to review it, this is what will happen when the investor reviews the business before giving funds. Okay, they will find out where there are gaps in compliance, contracts, litigation exposure which is unresolved. All of that they will want to do. So if you do a free legal health checkup, you can review some documents, give them inputs. Okay, now this is a simple way. After the discovery call, you can suggest one of these kinds of services. Okay, it's like a legal health checkup to see how investment to, or a mock due diligence to see whether you're investment ready. I'll fix all the pain points so that when an investor is doing a due diligence, they are they don't find issues, or the issues are minimized. Okay, now you can, so then the next is having a gateway service. Okay, so a gateway service is what, now there are these two steps I'm giving you. Follow up. So let's go back here. This is free. Okay, here you learn about the business, you ask the questions that we discussed earlier. Legal health checkup can be paid, can be free. Okay, a gateway service, again, this is a low cost service, or if something free, can be a low cost service. Okay, this is to interact more closely with the client and internal stakeholders to give them a sense of your work. See, until here you're talking only business and you're building connection and relationship. You're not explaining how good you are, you're not delivering into a need, you are identifying need. This is need identification. Okay, like we do need identification through a requirement analysis form, okay, which we use for corporate trainings. Now this again is a form of that, but here you are going to use this to provide a paid service later. Okay, so here again you're asking questions to get to something very objective. Now this is an initial service, this could be a low margin service. Again, they get a taste of your professionalism, your work, your delivery, your connect with people, your quality of work. Examples of gateway services are negotiation training, short one, okay, 2-hour negotiation training on a particular contract for business managers. Okay, you could do a data protection training, you could do a disciplinary proceedings training for HR managers and legal team. Like that, you could do a post training. So trainings are one of the key heads of gateway services. Law firms do competition trainings, insider trading trainings for a lot of companies. Okay, so gateway services, now those could be gateway services or those could be heavily built, but I am saying to you that if you want to build a new client, you need to have a low effort, low cost gateway service that allows them to again trust you and build your build rapport with you. Okay, then is the roadmap. So you did this legal health checkup where you identified based on review of documents what they need. Okay, now that roadmap, you will need to give them a roadmap after that, after the checkup, to say that you need these 10 things done in this amount of time, and this is how I plan to do it in these many phases, and these are the steps. This is a 2-month plan and I will complete it by the end of the 2nd month. Every 7 days I'll send you an update and with this thing delivered. Okay, and then you will give them a pricing also for this. You can collect an advance also, but the question that we are talking about is not these 3, not even this. Okay, the most important thing here is that how to ask, like which are the questions to ask, because people do not know how to talk to clients. When I'm speaking to a lot of our students, coaching them, most of my coaching revolves around okay, what is the client doing? And you know, they say this is what the client asked me, and I'm like, no, but ask them one more step. What are they doing? How does this work? What is the USP? Because that's when you can actually say that this is what you need, because you know then the business of the client. Otherwise that is not possible. And then you move on to the service and delivery part after you get the advance. Okay, in the roadmap you will say that there is an advance needed, and to start it could be a small amount, but you know what's really happening here, why do you insist on that? If you're giving, you know, if you're not charging exorbitantly and you're giving value for money, you will still want both sides to exchange energy. You don't want to be taken for a ride. You can give something cheaper, but you still want like the other side also to invest. So that is why you can insist on an advance there. Okay, now what happens here is that the roadmap is not that I will take up this civil case or I will send this legal notice. It is a strategy to solve the entire issue. Okay, so if it's about a mock legal health checkup, then you will give them a list of 20 things you will fix, so that they are actually, you know, when they are doing a real diligence for an investment transaction, these things are fixed. Okay, and another thing we focus on in the Beat COVID workshop is how to identify, you know, how to differentiate between low margin and high margin services, and how to move from a low margin service to a high margin service. Okay, but we'll have a few conversations over interaction right now. Now the next thing is, after the receipt of advance, you got to focus on service and delivery, which means that usually what happens is that we follow an after the fact approach, which means that after I get the matter, I will do the research and figure it out. I'll see 3-4 templates and draft the contract. I'll research on case law and do it. But that's exactly where we fail. Okay, we need to be pre-prepared. That's what preparation means. You have to be prepared in advance, okay, for these kind of things. Okay, and your preparation actually shows to the client that you know how much on point you are. The lawyers who get the mandate are the ones who are prepared. What does it mean to be prepared? One is to know the law, yes, but also to know how to perform the task that you're going to propose. You got to know it beforehand so that you can say that this is what I will do. You've got to know some of the obstacles you're going to hit and how you will solve them. So you need to know, you need to not get stuck, and you need to know the steps of the process. You need to know the whole route. Okay, this is the reason lawyers have this after the fact approach, is because they don't know the whole route till the end of resolving the client's problem. See, you don't know which step will give you the result sometimes. Okay, if you're doing a litigation, you don't know, but you will know that this step, this step, this step, this step, and there's like a 5% chance or 10% chance at each step that you know one of the steps may work, and there's a chance that nothing may work. So there are no guarantees. But the point is, do you know how to execute each step? You don't have to guarantee result, but can you execute each step? That's what will make the client believe you. Okay, now quickly we are discussing this in detail. It takes 6 hours actually to properly do this bit by bit, step by step in a workshop that we do. I just want to let you know about it. You can look at the link on LawSikho.com website and register for the next one, those of you who are interested. But we thought that we'll bring out some parts and phases into this free webinar, and we will also deal with some questions now. Okay, now what does it take first to succeed at this? Industry and sector knowledge. Okay, lawyers, for example, we focus on legal knowledge. When in lockdown also, I saw lawyers talk, whoever formed study groups. I didn't see lawyers learning about business. Okay, the lawyer who wants to learn about business, unfortunately, wants to do an MBA and move out of law altogether. But we saw lawyers forming study groups where they're discussing contract law, they're discussing cases. Okay, but point is, boss, you need to know industry knowledge. You want to cater to sports industry, you need to know what is the industry divided into. For example, there could be broadcasting issues, there could be sports person endorsements, there could be player contracts with their leagues if you're doing an IPL related work. Okay, or there could be athletes ka issue with around doping and all of that. Now, which side of it are you on? So you have to break down the industry and understand that which issue comes where and which is the side you're acting for. Okay, if you are in the media and entertainment space, then you need to understand who's going to give you work. Are the newspapers going to give you work, or are the OTT apps and the content creation or content creators going to give you work? Okay, if you are in the technology space, then you need to understand that, you know, okay, how does data actually flow from one app to another? Okay, what are the data protection issues? Not the law. The law will say, okay, take consent, inform the customer. But the point is that when you look at how a business works, sometimes all that becomes very difficult to walk through. So industry and sector knowledge is the most important. You need to know, for example, that if I am giving my details on a cloud website or on a cloud service, the database might be by another provider. It might be stored somewhere else. So that whole thing you need to know. Okay, then you need to know subject knowledge. And nowadays, subject knowledge is intersecting various areas. I'll give you an example. You might learn basic contract drafting, but you will need to know technology contracts to do a proper technology contract. Okay, in that now there will be knowledge of data protection. There may be data protection addendums you will add. You will negotiate indemnity also. Then there will be international commercial arbitration if the purchaser is a business outside India and the company which makes the software is in India. Okay, now that arbitration clause becomes an international commercial arbitration automatically, because one entity is a foreigner. Then you will get into the seat versus venue debate. You will see which is the institution we are going to use, which is the choice of law. So there you see that contract drafting, data protection, arbitration got interlinked. The more the areas get interlinked, the more high value your service becomes, the more irreplaceable you are. Okay, now now you might have a small deal. For example, this need not be a 50 crore deal. This could be a 1 crore deal or 50 lakh deal. But all these complexities are involved. Definitely, now what this does is that it creates a better market for lawyers, but lawyers need to up their game. Okay, but there's a market, and a lot of times these needs go unserved. And you will see this regularly. High value contracts, low value contracts equally have absurd missing clauses, like, the seat versus venue debate. I'm taking this example, okay? It arose because, contract lawyers drafted bad arbitration clauses. It's called pathological clauses. And this is a classic in the study of international commercial arbitration. Okay, all arbitration lawyers know about it, but contract drafting lawyers don't know about it. And you know what? It's not a recent discovery. It's since 1970 to 1974, this word was first coined by somebody. Okay, and it stayed, which means that we have continued with the same mistake. Lawyers continue to make the same mistake because the system hasn't evolved. And this is across the globe. You will need from time to time now, these unexpected new things crop up. So you will need access to a library of mentors or resources that, when you get stuck, you can reach out to someone and say, okay, how can I resolve this? How do I go about it? Okay, not necessarily just templates. People think that all my answers are in a template, but then why is the client paying you, right? A lot of real life contracts in different industries have combinations of 2 or 3 contracts in one. Okay, and then you will have separate contracts also. So this, you cannot have like a perfect template library, but you need base templates and you need to know how to use those. So you need that training, and you need to have mentorship to identify which template I need when and how to customize it, where to customize it. Okay, of course study is needed because now suddenly if I bring up technology contract, okay, which will be very different from a regular contract. Technology contract, like a software development agreement, master services agreement, service level agreement, all these become very different. Somebody in our technology contracts course had asked that, how is a software contract for an agile model different from a waterfall model? Okay, and that's the kind of question people need to know, and that's what you need to tell a technology developer, that okay, you're following agile form of development, I'll help you do this. Okay, so now that's the kind of understanding you need. So it's a combination of contracts plus technology contracts. Sometimes there can be a data protection angle, and then there'll be international commercial arbitration angle. Okay, industry knowledge is important because one of the biggest issues in a software contract, for example, is documentation. That how does your code work? One coder cannot read another coder's work, which means I have the freedom as an employer to kick out a coder, but if I replace him, then the new person will have to create the software from scratch, unless there is very clear documentation prepared by the first coder. Now, documentation is a vague term. Somebody needs to sit and verify that a third party can actually use this. So you're understanding these problems arise, and this is why industry knowledge is important. Okay, so now, now those of you who are interested, of course, can reach out to us, because we have 3 libraries depending on what the different learners' needs are: the master access library, corporate law library, or the litigation library. I'm going to move on to asking you, what are the questions that you all have? Are there any takeaways for you? And yeah, this is open now. So you can ask me questions. There's a Q&A box and there's a chat box. I'm just seeing where the questions are. Okay. So yeah, any questions, feedback, learnings? Was this all very new? Is there any inputs, anything useful for you in this? You want to unmute and chat? So this process, when do you use this process? Okay, there is one way to use it. If you want to build independent clients, okay, and independent clients not necessarily in litigation alone. This allows you to be an independent practitioner or a freelancer working from anywhere, solving a client's needs, including litigation. And even in litigation, you can just work on litigation strategy and engage local litigators to do the work. Okay, litigation, freelance work, or yeah, both these routes can be used. If you're in a law firm, a small law firm, or even in a big one, you can use this process to onboard newer clients for business development. Okay, so industry knowledge has to be gained through, I can give you examples. How do you gain industry knowledge? In the courses that we do, sometimes people find the courses difficult because we combine law knowledge and industry knowledge together. Okay, and people struggle with that. That's the one reason they struggle with that. But I'm sharing you some resources where you can learn more about industry. But So for example, a website like Entracker or Your Story, you could use Read the Ken. Okay. There are many other websites where you can read about it, but specifically you need to, for example, if you say, Aarti, choose an industry you want to learn about. You need to regularly read about those things. So how I'll tell you. Okay, so and all you need to know is who are the businesses operating, what are their models, what's happening. Okay, so media and entertainment where you need to know about different OTT platforms. You need to use them. You might want to download all the apps and see how they function. Okay, you might want to see that how the music is made. You can see the music rights. By the way, play an Amazon original TV show and at the end see the credits. Okay, then think what are the contracts they would have had. Okay, then think of then think of this. Okay, how does a music app make money? Okay, so somewhere I was reading that 4% of all music app subscribers are paid subscribers. So that is not the way they make money. Okay, and however, like that is not the major source of revenue. So 4% people pay, the remaining is paid by advertisers. So 96% people listen to music for free on music streaming apps. So therefore, advertisements is a key source of money. Now, if you have somebody aggregating or starting an app, you know what are their pain points going to be? Content acquisition, right? Then they will have to also work on payment plans, of course, for licensed customers. Then advertisement deals is going to be something, right? So that's how you see. Then you will see that in the OTT industry, some things you will see very simply that, you know, there are some TV shows which are there on Amazon Prime in US but not here, or on Netflix in Thailand but not here. So you know, but they may be there here on a different OTT app. So you might know that, you know, when they are doing the licensing contracts, they are choosing the territories very differently. Okay, so that's a customization they're putting it in. That's one way. So you can use the apps and observe how they function. One of the things I do is use the apps directly to understand that. Second is that I would follow one of these websites for learning about a particular industry. If I identify a specific issue, then I directly search for the issue. Other thing is, of course, in our courses, we are focusing a lot on the industry, but there's a combination of industry and law together. Okay. Purely focusing on industry without catering to legal needs doesn't also help. So yeah, Aarti, does this answer your question? Are there any other questions? Any feedback from y'all? Did you find this relevant to what you do? Is it very experimental? It's quite new. A lot of people said that this was refreshing, but I don't know about all of you. From your goals, it depends. I've written on the chat, Aarti, what the websites are. Okay, no questions from anybody. Okay, I've got questions. Sorry, I didn't see the panel question and answer. 1 second. Q&A is not loading up. Yeah, found the Q&A. What is selling to government is one question that I've got. So selling to government means, like in any economy, imagine, okay, you're working for a startup. Now, if the government could buy from the startup would have credibility because I sell to the government department, so I'm a credible startup, right? And you could boast to all your clients that, you know, the government buys from me, so you can rely on me. Now, for that, the government has rules for procurement. Okay, so they have tender processes. Startups don't know about it, and they don't want to fill all. They don't know which forms to look out for, how to fill those forms. They don't know if they lose the deal, what happens. Okay, can they challenge it? They don't know what are the conditions for them to win. Like the government has SME special benefits for SMEs. So if the lowest, so usually the tender would go, let's say, if there's a two-stage inquiry, one is that you will have the technical qualifications to be seen, then you will see the price. On the price, it could be the lowest bidder also. Usually in very simple contracts, I'm not taking complex ones, in simple procurements, lowest bidder wins. In case of startups, the government has said that up to about 30% of the demand can be met by startups, and they don't have to be the lowest deal quote. They could be plus minus, they could be within 15% range of the lowest quote. Okay, that means that I don't even have to worry about being the lowest quoted person. Okay, 30% of government demand can be met by my quote, even if it's not the lowest quote. Okay. Now, Saroj, you're saying you do this when the client is coming to us. What if you want to approach someone or find client, what to do in that cases? So if you want to do that, you don't fish one by one, okay? You cast a very big net. How do you cast a very big net? You create a community or join a community, you do YouTube webinars, you build your channel, you put up blogs in different websites, you write your article, so that those who are interested reach out to you, and then you follow this process. Okay, so you write about the issues faced like an expert. So like Aarti can pick up issues in media and entertainment industry in India. Okay, one of the issues, for example, Aarti, is that the theatrical releases that were planned didn't happen during lockdown. A lot of the big ticket movies got released on OTT apps, and that was purchased at a much smaller amount than what the box office revenues are. So now what is this going to do for actors contracts? Will their payments get adjusted for the past ones? What's it going to do for the new acting contracts? What does it mean, like, for should OTT platforms increase their fees because they can charge more because there's no box office? Okay, these questions are there that you can write on, Aarti. Saroj, you can choose a sector and I can give you an idea accordingly. In Tracker, Your Story, and Ken, Aarti. Supriya, if client is not giving correct facts, what should advocate do? If you identify that, then you have to say that, listen, I'll do your work, but you're not giving me all the facts. And if there's any mistake, I'll not be responsible. And you might omit something that you think is harmless, but it's valuable. So I'll not be able to properly take care of your interest. Okay, do you want that? Because I don't have a liability under law. I will act as per your instructions. So you're the one who will face the cost of it. So would you prefer to tell me everything? Okay, Supriya, hope your questions addressed. Aarti, addressed? Any other questions? Okay, so guys, those of you who are students, want to see know more about Master Access, feel free to reach out to our team. Those of you, and the Beat COVID Crisis workshop will happen next month around will be happening next week now, on Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, so those who are interested can sign up. It's only 500 rupees and it's a long 6-hour workshop. You will enjoy it, 2 days. We dive into this in a lot more detail, a lot more interaction and discussions. Okay. Yes, Aarti, it's not in Tracker, it is N Tracker. Okay, and there are more also. There's Tech Story. There are many US websites. Then I keep forgetting, and then when I see them, it hits me. And every industry has a different website. Okay, so music will have different sites to look at. Sports will have different websites to look at. Fashion will have different. But purely industry websites which have nothing to do with the law, you must read those. Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. If there are no more questions, then we will close this session. And all the best to all of you. Feel free to reach out if you need any further assistance. We're available. Okay. Riddhi, you got the websites? Real estate, what do you want, Saroj? Okay, write on real estate. There's tons of stuff to write. How do you set up a data center in India? What are the new models for real estate after COVID? Okay, how to structure a staycation model for a restaurant? How to build staycation friendly hotels? Sorry, how to create a staycation model for a hotel? How to create staycation friendly hotels? What kind of office spaces? Imaginative office models for co-working spaces for post-lockdown scenarios. Like, if you look at it now, many states have opened the lockdown, right? But people are still avoiding travel. But we are realizing that people should ideally, office teams should meet at least once a week or once in a fortnight to stay personally connected. Now, what kind of a model can a co-working space build for that? So that their 30 days is occupied. Okay, Saroj, that is going to be important. Earlier, you had OYO and all getting into co-living spaces. So how can they pivot? Are there new things they can do? How should warehousing work now? Okay, so this is what you got to figure out and write on. Any other new models also. VC circle is a good one, Aarti. VC circle. Okay, Aarti, it's tech story, tech story. All right, everybody. See you. Thank you, Saroj. I hope your question was answered. Okay. Cheers and have a great time.